podcasters. This is Crystal Blackwell, podcast host of Crystal Clear Moments. I am so excited that you're here. Today, I'm going to be having a feature speaking about leadership and empathy. I believe that empathy is the leader's 21st century superpower. Actually, I think it's culturally our superpower. And if we could really learn to lean into what empathy really is and truly understand it and truly walk it out, I think we will be able to solve or at least understand so much what's going on right now. So let me set the stage of the climate that we're in while I'm doing this podcast. It's the day before the election. So, of course, we have no idea what it's going to be. But just the climate of the world right now and how everyone feels and the conversations we're hearing and just everywhere you go, you can get some sense of anxiety. It's just everywhere. And I believe, and I said that before, that empathy not only is a leader's superpower, but I believe it's all of our superpowers. So before I go into it, I wanted to talk about the word empathy. So empathy is really, it's an action, and it's you understanding and connecting with others where they're at. And even understand doesn't mean you had to experience it. Understand doesn't mean that you even truly know what it is. But it's you being able to connect with a person's situation or whatever they're going through. So as I walk through sharing empathy, I'm going to tell a story. It's a true story. And it's a story that, how I experience empathy for a particular situation. So there's three different types of empathy. I don't know if you knew that or not, but in my research, there's three different types of empathy. There's emotional empathy, there's cognitive empathy, and then there's compassionate empathy. So emotional empathy is you really understanding how someone else feels. Like, I get how you feel. So that can show up like this. So say, for an example, okay, so I'll use, the story I was going to share before. I've never owned a pet. I mean, I did as a little girl. I had a pet, but I was really small, and I didn't really get attached to it. But I have a friend who is a fur mom. Like, that's her baby. And I get that. And her baby has parties, and her baby has its own room, and her baby has its own clothes. Like, it's her baby. It's her fur baby, and she's a fur mommy. And she loves this baby. And she's had this fur baby for years. It is a member of the family. It became a member of her family. It became a member of our friend group. It is this fur baby was really the heart and soul of this individual. And then the fur baby died and was called home, and it was unexpected, and she was devastated. I'm talking like really, really devastated. We're talking calling out sick from work, taking bereavement time, which, you know what? Her where she worked at really honored the fact that she was grieving and gave her bereavement time. So anybody who's out there right now in an organization, if you're a leader, hear me clear on this. I mean, this was real, and she was given bereavement time. So kind of sit with that. That's where we're at in this world. And it was very important to her, and she took that time. When she told me about her pet, when her pet died, again, I've never owned a pet, but I felt her. When she was sharing the story, when she called me and she was on the phone and she was crying, I teared up. I felt the pain. That's emotional empathy, when you feel it. It can also show up, say you're watching a movie, a sad movie, and your eyes kind of get, watery. Or someone's telling a story and you have nothing to do with it, and all of a sudden you feel it. You get goosebumps. Maybe your eyes, again, watery. Maybe you feel in your soul like you ache for them. If someone ever talk about like maybe an illness and you actually feel the pain, like that's an expression of emotional empathy. And oftentimes we do that really, really well, emotional empathy. Then we have what I wanted to cover, the next type of empathy, which is a cognitive empathy. And cognitive empathy is now we feel it. Now, this is when we think like we know that. And that shows up simply by saying, I understand how you feel. I understand how my friend felt when she lost her pet. Now, not that I've ever lost a pet and felt that way, but I know what it feels like to grieve. I know what it feels like to lose something that I love, that's close to me. I know that feeling of something that I invested in, that I loved, and now it's gone. A good friend, maybe a parent's passed away, or just some level of grief. Like I can connect with grief, so I understood how she felt. Now, how does that show up? By simply saying, I understand how you feel. I get that. And, just letting them know, I connect with you cognitively. Like, I get why you feel this way. So with my friend, I simply showed up that way. Like, wow, I know what it feels like to lose someone close to you. I know what it feels like to go through the grieving process. Really acknowledging. So remember, emotionally, first I felt it because it shows up. And then now cognitively, I'm sharing hey, I understand how you feel. The third piece of empathy is called compassionate empathy. And I believe this is usually the misstep. This is the one that we don't know how to walk out. This is the one that oftentimes businesses really misstep and people don't really think they're authentic. This is the area I think that if we really leaned into, we can really raise the bar in our awareness, how we really walk through empathy. Because remember, I believe empathy is the superpower of the 21st century for everyone, especially if you are a leader in an organization or you lead people. So compassionate empathy. Compassionate empathy is you need to do something. That's the action. What are you going to do? You need to show up. You need to show some level of action. So let's use my story as an example. My friend's pet died. I felt that because I know what grief feels like, and that was like a member of her family. I connected. I acknowledged that. I understand how you feel, sincerely. The way we can show up in the compassionate part, the other part of empathy, because there's three, and now we're talking about compassionate. Compassionate empathy is the action, is how you show up. Now, in the story I'm telling you, I could simply show up by saying, hey, you know what? If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Or stopping by her house. Or, what can we do to honor your pet? Whatever it is that you need to do to show up. And if you simply don't know, you can ask them, what can I do? How can I support you? And that can be tough because empathy situations that require empathy can be sticky, uncomfortable, not usually something that is joyful sometimes, but if we just don't know, we can simply ask the person, what can I do? How can I support you? So now we've covered empathy. I also want to add that empathy is not always something that's like sad or bad or something that happened to you. Empathy can show up in joyous moments as well. You may get a promotion and you may tell someone and they're excited for you. You got a promotion, I'm excited for you. Okay, now you're showing empathy. Gosh, I remember when I was promoted and got a huge raise. Now I'm telling you, hey, let's go celebrate. Now we're doing something. What can we do to celebrate your promotion? So not only is empathy used to be something that's sad, oftentimes that's where we land, but empathy is something that is the emotion that can be expressed in all areas. It can express joy, it can express sadness, it can express all sorts of things. So remember, there's three different types of empathy. Emotional, you feel it. Cognitive, you understand it. And compassionate, which is the one sometimes we misstep, is how we walk it out. Okay, again, empathy, I believe, is a 21st century superpower. If we can just lean into empathy, think about how it can show up in the workplace. Think about how it can show up in your personal lives. Think about how it can show up in terms of communities you're part of. Think about how it can show up with just understanding race relations. People really get really bent out of shape when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But really, it's about understanding people and having a heart to lean into emotional, cognitive, and compassionate empathy, and being okay expressing that it may be incredibly uncomfortable. It may be, it may not be. But knowing that it might in some cases, and respecting people in that space. So, okay, go on and champion your empathy, practice it, hold yourself accountable, and really lean into the fact that I believe, and I know you believe, that empathy is the number one superpower of the 21st century for all leaders. And I believe all of us are leaders in this world.